Hello everyone. Let's start with a new topic, cultural evolution, broad outlines of prehistoric cultures. And this topic belongs to UPSC Anthropology. So, first, prehistory means the time before arrival of writing. And writing arrived around 3000 BC in Mesopotamia or Sumerian civilization. So, the time from 2.5 million years to 3000 BC. This long time, known as the prehistory, it gives us insights about how we evolved both biologically and socially. And this time, it is marked by many such ages, such as Paleolithic, Mesolithic, Neolithic, Chalcolithic, Copper Bronze, and Iron Ages. And each such stage marks a significant leap in human innovation and adaptation. And each such phase or step, it laid the foundation of modern civilization brick by brick. Now, the first, Paleolithic. So the word Paleolithic it is made up of two words, paleo and lithos. Paleo means old and litho means stone. That's why the name Old Stone Age. So this age it spanned from 2.5 million years to around 10,000 BC. And this long time it belonged to the geological time Pleistocene epoch. And Pleistocene epoch was a evolutionary nightmare for our ancestor. क्योंकि एक तो environment, the climate, it was fluctuating between glacial and interglacial cycle. फिर उसकी वजह से vegetation was not there, adaptive pressures were there. और anthropology के student होने के तौर पे you must keep this in mind because it is during the time of adaptive radiation or adaptive pressures that newer species or the newer traits emerge because the pressure it provides a platform, a template for such evolutionary miracles to happen. And in evolutionary biology, this is known as punctuated equilibrium. Punctuated equilibrium, punctuation तो आप जानते हैं, like comma, full stop, like so. In this concept, punctuated equilibrium, the evolution it does not happen linear. It does not traverse a linear line. But this journey is like this one. First, a long period of stasis in which the changes are stasis, in which the changes are minimal or gradual. Then there will be a brief period of rapid evolution, and such rapid evolution it is facilitated by strong adaptive pressure, and then again a long period of stasis. So this concept is punctuated equilibrium, and you can also equate it with genetic drift. Again, a new concept which align with this previous concept of punctuated equilibrium. So genetic drift में क्या होता है? A small population when isolated by its parent population, and because of strong selective pressure, strong adaptive pressure, this small population it evolves certain features which help in its survival. So in that case, that strong population, it readily evolves or adapts newer features because छोटी population है तो जो selective pressures हैं, strong pressures हैं, like fluctuating environment हो गया, drought हो गया, genetic bottleneck events हो गए, तो उसकी वजह से there is a lot of pressure on this particular population to survive. Or survival is the best mechanism, the strongest force that can evolve the miraculous feature. It's like death. When you face death, then you're about to do anything. Survival is the most powerful impulse. और ये आप human evolutionary trajectory में आप देख लेंगे कि how from Australopithecines to Homo sapiens we have we have many brushes, close brushes with death, and it is our strong adaptive techniques, our adaptation, and then our survival tactics that help us survive this long. Now, coming back to the topic, the Paleolithic, it is divided into three phases: Lower Paleolithic, Middle Paleolithic, and Upper Paleolithic. Now, the Lower Paleolithic, which is the dawn of human technological and cultural evolution. Lower Paleolithic, it extends from 2.6 million years ago to 300,000 years ago. Now we have two important evolutionary milestones here. 2.6 million years ago is the beginning of Pleistocene after Pliocene. Then 300,000 years ago, it is the time of arrival of Homo sapiens, the most cruel, the most adaptive, and the most intelligent branch on this earth. So, low Paleolithic, it marks the earliest stage of human cultural evolution, and it witnessed the birth of human-made technology in form of simple stone tools, and it also laid the foundation for technological innovation, cognitive evolution, and social organization for early hominins, such as Homo habilis and Homo erectus. Now, the chronological and evolutionary framework. So, it represents the longest and most fundamental phase of prehistorical cultural timeline. Began 2.6 million years ago, ended 300,000, and aligned with the early to middle Pleistocene epoch, the time that is marked by significant climate fluctuation and biological transformation. Now, the time frame and division. First, the time is divided according to the arrival of two different subspecies. First, early lower Paleolithic that date from 2.6 to 1.7 million years ago, which is dominated by Oldowan tool industry and associated with Homo habilis, the handyman, the earliest known human tool maker. Then the second age, late lower Paleolithic, which spanned from 1.7 to 300,000, characterized by Acheulean tool tradition and linked with Homo erectus and early Homo heidelbergensis. Now, the paleoanthropological context, key hominin species, जो अभी यहाँ पे देखा है. The first one is Homo habilis, also known as the handyman. Homo habilis existed from 2.4 to 1.4 million years ago. Key fossil sites such as Aldovik Gorge, Tanzania, and Kubifora, Kenya, both belong to the Great African Rift Valley site, which is important for anthropological perspective because this site has yielded key hominin fossils that help in study how human evolved. Now, the key features of Homo habilis: cranial capacity from 600 to 750 cc. This species was the first to manufacture and use Oldowan tools. That's why Homo habilis is considered the first human tool maker. And such industry, it demonstrated earlier manual dexterity and basic planning abilities, or even a precursor of cognitive advancement. और इससे पहले की जो स्पीशीज थी ऑस्ट्रेलोपिथेसिन्स, लाइक अगर आपको डिटेल में देखना है, यू कैन सी प्रीवियस वीडियोस. सो ऑस्ट्रेलोपिथेसिन्स, उनका ब्रेन इट वाज एवरेज अराउंड 550 cc, but they did not show any cognitive advancement. Bipedalism उनमें था, but cognitive advancement नहीं थे. But Homo habilis, it really made a jump. Then the second species, Homo erectus, or the upright man, time period 1.8 million to 300,000, just before the arrival of Homo sapiens. Then the geographical range, Africa, Asia, and parts of Europe. A key feature, cranial capacity, you can see the significant jump from Homo habilis and Australopithecine. So this cranial expansion, this brain expansion was miraculous, and this species was associated with Acheulean tools like bifacial hand axes and cleavers, and there has been evidence of fire use, long distance migration. You can see the geographical range here, Africa, Asia, और जब और डिस्कस करेंगे you will know about it, long distance migration, and there has been clear evidence of proto-social behavior, and this signify a major leap, major jump in biological and cultural evolution. And the third species, Homo heidelbergensis, which was found in Germany, that's why the name heidelbergensis. Time period 600,000 to 200,000, coexisted with modern Homo sapiens. Fossil sites, Europe and Africa, such as Bodo and Atapuerca in Spain. Key features: cranial capacity 1100 to 1300 cc, closely aligning with the modern Homo sapiens. They use advanced Acheulean tools, possibly early hunting strategies, and they were considered a probable common ancestor of both Neanderthals and modern humans. And that's why they are named the transitional forms. So all these hominins, they show that evolutionary progression in brain size, tool complexity, and behavioral flexibility help us gradually transit from ape-like ancestor to modern culturally adaptive humans. Now, the climatic and environmental background of the time. So, as I already told you, low Paleolithic, it coincided with the geological time Pleistocene epoch, which was characterized by repeated glacial and interglacial cycle, expansion and contraction of forests, grassland, and desert, and availability of large herbivores and other fauna for subsistence. तीनों को देखते हैं. First, this the repetition of glacial and interglacial cycle, it coincide with the Milankovitch cycle. आप लोगों ने जो UPSC के students हैं, you might have heard about it. Milankovitch cycle, which is the gradual shift in the tilt of Earth's axis, and this tilt is cyclical, and with that cyclical tilt, Earth it cyclically goes through glacial and interglacial cycle. Glacial means Earth, the most of its part, they are covered with snow and ice, and interglacial cycle means for a brief time the snow it melts and provide way for warm phase. Right now we are in a warm phase, the Holocene or the Anthropocene. So उस Pleistocene epoch में our ancestor they repeatedly faced such glacial and interglacial cycle, and uh, the intensity of the glacial cycle was so severe that during the snowball earth event, that was a past event, snowball earth event, at the time the whole earth was covered with snow from pole to pole. You can see the intensity. बाद में प्लेस्टोसीन के टाइम तक इंटेंसिटी काफ़ी कम हो गई, तो सिर्फ मेजर जो पार्ट्स हैं, स्पेशली जो पोलर पार्ट्स हैं, एंड देन जो टेम्परेट या जो टुंड्रा क्लाइमेट है वो, और मेजर पोर्शन ऑफ टेरेस्ट्रियल टेरिटोरियल लैंड, वो सब कवर्ड थे. लेकिन फिर भी जो ग्लेशियल साइकिल है, उनकी वजह से वेजिटेशन के अंदर बहुत प्रॉब्लम हुई, बिकॉज जो ट्रॉपिकल वेजिटेशन है ये धीरे धीरे कम होती गई एंड प्रोवाइडेड वे फॉर फॉरेस्ट, ओपन वुडलैंड्स, ग्रासलैंड एंड इवन डेजर्ट्स. तो ये एक एडेप्टिव प्रेशर था जिसकी वजह से हमारे जो एंसेस्टर्स हैं उनके अंदर काफ़ी सारे फीचर्स इवॉल्व हुए. And it was these fluctuating environment that required early hominins, Homo habilis, Australopithecines, Homo erectus, Neanderthals, all of our ancestors to become more mobile, more resourceful, cognitively capable, and to face off such technological, such environmental onslaught with adaptive mechanisms. Now, the cultural markers of the period. So, stone tool manufacturing, first time hominin created, uh, intentional, but rare, later on, the Homo habilis, we have the first evidence of deliberate manufacture by them. Then there has been use of fire. So some evidence points to early fire control, such as Wonderwerk Cave in South Africa, and as of basic social organization, which is implied by site organization and repeated use of certain locations. So this evidence was also there. And finally, the expansion out of Africa. So Homo erectus was the first hominin to migrate out of Africa, reaching as far as East Asia, packing man, Zoococodian, Europe के अंदर the Manisi. So they also mark the beginning of global human dispersal and provide support to out of Africa theory. Now the significance of chronological framework. So understanding the chronology, the timeline, it helped anthropologists to answer critical question was how did tool making evolve over time? Because it was in the beginning, in the evolution of tools, that all of the later institutions, such as the civilization, the writing, all the tools that we use today, even the laptop by which I am teaching, all of them, they can be evolved to, they can be traced to the first stone tool used by humans. Then what biological changes coincided with cultural advancement and even environmental pressures? So biological changes भी तो होने चाहिए. Otherwise, Australopithecines could have been able to evolve into modern kind of Australopithecines. So there were certain biological changes which must be needed. Otherwise, अगर biological changes नहीं होते, so how our ancestor, so most of us belong to primates, and primates belong to mammals, and mammals belong to animal group, animal kingdom. So why ये जो species है, ये हमारी तरह evolve क्यों नहीं हुए? There are certain changes that coincide with the environmental pressure, the adaptive pressure. So वो biological changes भी समझते हैं, and environmental challenge ये बताती है. So all these framework they form the backbone of paleoanthropology that link fossil evidence to reconstruct the earliest human life phase. Now, the emergence of first hominins and the invention of tools. So, Low Paleolithic saw the emergence of first tool-making hominins, Homo habilis, the handyman, the first toolmaker, and this species lived between 2.4 to 1.4 million years ago, primarily in Great African Rift Valley in East Africa, and the first site was Old Gorge. It was discovered by Louis and Mary Leakey in 1960s. Now, the key characteristic of Homo habilis, cranial capacity 600 to 750 cc, which is larger than 30 to 50%, 30%, around 30% larger than that of Australopithecines, where bipedalism was there, but this species it also shown some primitive features such as arboreal adaptation, क्योंकि the legs, lower limbs, they were suitable for bipedal locomotion. The foramen magnum, it was situated anteriorly, centrally, just below the skull. But then, जो limbs की बात करें, they were longer, and the fingers they were curved. All of which suggests that Homo habilis it was a terrestrial hominin, but yet it was also adapted to the arboreal lifestyle. Then hands capable of precision grip, which suggests advanced manual dexterity because the thumb it was aligned and fully opposable. Posability means your thumb can touch the tip of any other fingers, which is a sign of precision grip. And then this species is also associated with the first in tool industry, the old one industry. So this species it represents a transitional phase between earlier Australopithecines and later hominin like Homo erectus. फिर ओल्ड वन टूल इंडस्ट्री की बात करते हैं. So this tool industry it is dated around 2.6 million years ago with major sites Ghana, Ethiopia, Olduvai Gorge, Tanzania, and Kubifora, Kenya, all of them in East Africa in Great African Rift Valley. Now the features of older one tools, the first tools, the primitive tools, the simplest tools, and these tools are produced by striking one stone, the stone that you hold in your hand, known as the hammer stone that you use as a hammer, against another stone which is known as the core stone. And such percussion, such a striking, it creates sharp edges flakes. Now, all these flakes, they they are used, applied in different ways. First, flakes, they are used for cutting meats and plant material. Then they are choppers. So these are heavy stone tools with one sharp edge, which are there for smashing bone or wood. And then there are scraper for cleaning hides and processing food. The material for stone construction was basalt, quartzite, and flint, all of the naturally available material. So even though it was simple, it represented a revolutionary breakthrough because it reflects the ability of Homo habilis to plan, to choose appropriate material, and to execute specific action, which suggests basic cognitive planning and manual dexterity. Now, the behavioral implication. So, first is increase access to diverse food sources. So, before proceeding on to the subtopic, let me tell you one thing about the robust Australopithecines. So, robust Australopithecines, they survived for a long time during the Pliocene epoch, and the environment, it was much like a precursor to the Pleistocene. उस time भी environment cool था, food availability कम थी, open grassland savanna थे, tropical forests were not there, adaptive pressures were there. But the one mistake that this very long living species done was it specialized itself in diet. This dietary specialization, it led to its extinction by two ways. First, dietary specialization की वजह से, because यह बता दिया कि प्लाइसीन के अंदर the environment, it was not very favorable, conducive था ही नहीं, open grasslands थे, the food resources were not available. So first, their specialization was in abrasive plant material like tough fibers, roots, nuts. So इसकी वजह से they engaged in eating for a long time. So significant time it was devoted to chewing. और उस chewing की वजह से उनके जो morphological characteristic थे, they are also aligned with such hard chewing. Sagittal crest था, strong jaws थे, strong molars and premolars थे. But then here a significant time it was spent on it. फिर स्पेशलाइजेशन की वजह से दे कुड नॉट फाइंड एनी अदर सोर्स, डाइटरी वेरिएशंस नहीं थे, उसकी वजह से दे डिड नॉट एक्सप्लॉइट एनी अदर रिसोर्सेज या एनी अदर इकोलॉजिकल निश. तो दिस निश एक्सप्लॉइटेशन वाज नॉट देयर, क्योंकि अगर वो थोड़ा और माइग्रेट होते, दे वुड हैव एक्सपेंडेड देयर ओन habitat, so they might have found more food sources. But again, specialization along with uh, such a settle pattern or such absence of habitat diversification, both of which led to their death, led to their extinction. These species, they are considered evolutionary dead ends. So इसी background में I would like to highlight this fact that our ancestor Homo habilis, Homo erectus, all of them, they survived this long. They survived uh, the time. Pleistocene तो Pliocene से भी ज़्यादा severe था, but still they survived because of omnivorous diet, because of their diverse dietary uh, generalization, because of their niche exploitation, because of their foraging activity, because of their habitat diversification. So all such uh, adaptive mechanism जिसके लिए हमारे पास direct evidence नहीं है, like how they shifted to omnivorous diet, why they shifted to dietary generalization, why did they shift to habitat diversification, why did they exploit various niche, उसके लिए हमारे पास कोई एविडेंस नहीं है. हमारे पास ब्रेन एक्सपेंशन का एविडेंस है, हमारे पास डेंटिशन का एविडेंस है, बट what went in the back of their mind, ये हमारे पास नहीं. So but ultimately उस severe adaptive pressure में our ancestors survived because of these changes, and some species did not survive because of they did not follow this path. Now, first, increase access to diverse food system, and all of these points are behavioral implication of tool use. First, the simple stone tools, it enables scavenging from carcasses left by large carnivores. So ये एक और चीज है कि how we fed ourselves, how our ancestors fed themselves during this environmentally pressing time when nutrition was not available, food resources were scarce. So the first one was scavenging. ये जो carcasses, animal carcasses that were left by large carnivore, we fed on them. We use such carcasses, and we we could cut meat from them. And then bones के अंदर marrow होती है, the bone marrow, which is highly nutritious. And then tools की वजह से we could process tubers and roots. So all such behavior adaptation, it not only provided the nutrition, but this nutrition is also associated with the brain expansion, because in some tools की वजह से we got a grip over protein rich diet. And this protein rich diet, nutritious diet, uh, it was directly associated with the brain expansion. There is a hypothesis for that, the expansive tissue hypothesis. Look, in modern times our brain consume around 25% of our bodily energy. जितनी भी एनर्जी आपके शरीर में उसकी 25% एक सिंगल ऑर्गन ब्रेन कंज्यूम करता है. Despite we know the fact that we have uh, so many organs beside brain. We have liver, we have stomach, intestines, lungs hai, heart hai, functioning heart hai, a longest tissue, blood hai, and hormones are there. A whole network is there. But still, this single organ, it consume around 25% of energy. So this simple idea, this simple fact, it help us to correlate how brain expansion is tightly correlated with, or tightly related with, the provision of nutrition, provision of provision of energy. This energy, it came from the use of tools to access diverse food sources, especially the scavenging behavior and the cracking of bones to cut open bone marrow. And the second application of tools, improve survival and adaptation. So with tools, hominin, they could manipulate a wide range of environment, because tools now they acted like an weaponized extension of themselves. They could protect themselves, exploit new habitats, and migrate more effectively. Now the cognitive and neurological development, the tool making, it required motor coordination between brain, hand, and eyes. Then spatial understanding means what kind of a place would yield uh, certain kind of tools, which places good to look for herbivores, for carcasses, for certain kind of tubers, underground bushes, and it also help in providing yielding short-term memory. So all these facts, they are considered early evidence of technical intelligence, which is a precursor to more advanced cognition, which is later seen in other species such as Homo erectus, Neanderthals, and modern Homo sapiens. Now the social dimension, the tool making also had social implication. First one is learning by observation. This learning by observation, because groups were there, so this implies presence of social learning and perhaps a proto-culture. क्योंकि ग्रुप्स थे तो एक दूसरे को देखकर दे वर ऑब्जर्विंग. फिर सर्वाइवल जो है वो पूरे ग्रुप को हुआ है, किसी एक इंडिविजुअल का नहीं. तो सोशल लर्निंग वाज देयर. मैनी पीपल दे मे हैव रोल डिफरेंशिएशन, कि कुछ लोग जो है दे आर फॉरेजर्स, कुछ लोग जो है वो ट्यूबर्स ढूंढ रहे हैं, कुछ लोग जो हैं वो स्टोन जो है रॉ मटेरियल है वो लेके आ रहे हैं, कुछ लोग स्कैवेंज कर रहे हैं. तो some some implied dimension of cohesion is there. Where the repeated use of certain sites, certain area which are found in Old Gorge and many East African sites, they also hint at early form of site organization and group living. So all these uh, cultural behavior that are associated with the emergence of tools, they point to the beginning of culture, a proto-culture, learning, social cohesion, and cooperating behavior, all of which are defining features of modern humanity. Now, significance in human evolution. So, the appearance of Homo habilis and the older one tools is signal the beginning of human cultural journey, because the biological evolution, it should be complemented by technological evolution. Now, the key takeaways: the tool extended the body can enhance human capabilities by acting as tools, by acting as weapons, and the mind, it now engaged in shaping the material world, not reacting to it. So we became the manipulator, became the exploiters, we deliberately we started exploiting the habitat. And the success of tool making hominins over the non-tool using relative, non-tool making relative. It shows how technology became driver of evolutionary success. Now, this difference, it highlights to a difference between Homo habilis and Australopithecines. Australopithecines, they did not use tools deliberately. We do not have that much evidence of anthropologic Australopithecines engaging in any tool-making behavior. So we know how they end up in evolutionary dead ends. But our hominins, our ancestors, they survive. So it places technology at higher pedestal. फिर सेकंड इंडस्ट्री की बात करते हैं, द Acheulean tradition and the rise of Homo erectus. So this tool industry, it represents a major leap forward in human technological and cognitive evolution. And इसके साथ ही there is a rise in global spread of Homo erectus. Homo habilis, they were concentrated in diverse area, but still their geographical expansion, the geographical spread, it was limited. Homo erectus, it became a true the global nomad, because आगे देखते हैं, they spread everywhere. This species was known for its larger brain, robust physique, and pioneering adaptability. First, the introduction to Acheulean industry. So it began around 1.7 million years ago and continued approximately 300,000 years ago after the arrival of Homo sapiens. And it considered the longest lasting and most widespread tool industry that span Africa, Europe, West Asia, and part of South Asia. You can see how much the Homo erectus spread themselves. Now, the features of Acheulean tools: first, they are bifacially flake, means they were shaped on both sides for symmetry and sharpness. तो advancement आप देख सकते हैं old one से Acheulean में. They were simple tools, and they were produced by simple techniques. Hammerstone striking a core. But to produce bifacially flake and such symmetry and sharpness, it signifies cognitive advancement. Then standardized form, especially hand axes, cleavers, and picks, that indicate mental templates and planning. So now the Homo erectus, they were not just building simple stone tools. Now they had their own standards. Is Such standards are impossible to maintain without having any mental template, without having any planning about what they are going to design. Then there is improvement in technique. So use of soft hammer percussion, means using bone or wood, it suggests fine motor control and skill. Then the larger toolkit. So here by now they had a variety of tools with specific applications. So these tools show a qualitative advance over the rough and functional, simple old one tools. And they are all often described as the first true human tools due to their sophistication and intentional design. Now, the species that it associated with this tool is Homo erectus, the global pioneer, the global nomad. So now, Homo erectus, they span from they are dated from 1.8 million years to 300,000 years ago, roughly coinciding with the Acheulean culture. The key features: cranial capacity 900 to 1100 cc, which is significantly larger than Homo habilis, around uh, which average around 610 cc. और फिर उसी के में अगर ऑस्ट्रेलोपिथेसिन्स की बात करते हैं, which are which max around 550 cc. So you can see a significant jump in brain expansion. postcranial skeleton, fully upright posture, long legs, which are adapted for long distance walking, and no more primitive feature, no more transitional features. The geographical range, so they are first hominin to migrate out of Africa, reaching as far as the Manisi is in Georgia, and second, Zhoukoudian in China, Java, Indonesia, and in India, Narmada Valley and Atirampakam in India. Now, the tool use and cognitive advancement. So, first, they signify abstract thinking because they, the production of Assyrian tools required a mental image, a mental template of the final shape. वो पहले ही दिमाग में होना चाहिए कि क्या बना रहे हैं. And the symmetry which is seen in bifacial hand axes, it indicates aesthetic sensibility and possibly symbolic thinking. And the second, planning and execution. So tool making now, to make sophisticated and advanced tool, it involves sequential steps such as raw material selection, delayed gratification, and all of such steps, they are uh, matching traits of higher cognitive function. Pair motor skills and specialization. So advanced flaking, it require fine hand-eye coordination. क्योंकि advanced flaking है, sophisticated tools बनाने हैं, so it might have taken long time first from selecting the raw material, finding the required desired stone, raw material, desired stone, and then flaking it using soft percussion technique. Soft percussion technique means you are not striking it with all your force. You are deliberately planning your actions, the power, the striking force, and then sometimes you are also using soft materials such as bone or wood to achieve the desired shape. So all of these suggest hand-eye coordination, greater advanced motor coordination, and then there is an evidence of skill transmission. वो implied है, वो आप समझ सकते हैं. If so many people, if a whole group of Homo habilis, if it has evolved into Homo erectus, so there might have been some skill transmission. Otherwise, it is like um, you know working with blank slates all the time. कोई एक तो ऐसा पर्सन होगा नहीं जो सारे काम एक ही कर रहा है, या सारे के सारे एक साथ सारे के सारे काम भी नहीं कर रहे होंगे. So there might have been some group cohesion, some role differentiation, some skill transmission, some transmitting culture. Then about subsistence and ecological adaptation. So the Acheulean industry, it expanded the adaptive range and further highlighting the role of technology in evolution and adaptation. So this adaptation was by butchering large animal, in which became more efficient with sturdy hand axes. And some sites such as Torralba and Amrona in Spain, they show coordinated hunting or scavenging of large megafauna like elephant. Now, अब ये जो चीज़ है, we we might not have the evidence of Homo erectus, our ancestor, killing elephant, but then ये आप समझ सकते हैं कि हाथी को मारना है. If such giant animal is to be killed, it requires coordinating hunting. Without coordination, without cohesion, without mutual trust, and without efficient transmission, without social learning, such hunting could not have happened. Where evidence of fire use, especially at Zhoukoudian in China and Gesser Benot Yako, Israel, they suggest warmth, cooking, and protection. They might have been a precursor of modern domesticating species, the proto-domestic species. In simple word, proto-domestic species means house-like species, a house-like structure. In short, it is the idea of settlement patterns. Now, the Acheulean sites in India. So first is Atirampakam in Tamil Nadu, which is dated around 1.5 million years ago. and one of the earliest Acheulean sites in Asia, discovered by Sharma brothers and later excavated by Shanti Kapoor. It shows standardized hand axes and cleavers, which indicate advanced napping technique, advanced gripping technique. Then this Pungi Baikal Valley in Karnataka, and the excavation revealed stratified deposits with Acheulean tools. And here, the locally raw material like dolerite and quartzite are used, which suggests environmental adaptation. Then Pune, Singrauli, and Narmada Valley, these sites show the Acheulean tradition. It was persisting in India even when the other regions of the world they transitioned to Middle Paleolithic tools. Now, the cultural and evolutionary significance of Acheulean tools and Homo erectus. So, Acheulean tradition reflect increasing control over nature by social coordination, mobility, and symbolic capacity. So the symmetry and standardization of tools, it was considered early sign of proto-aesthetic and proto-symbolic behavior. The word proto, it suggests the ancient tools or acting as a precursor to the modern behavior. Then this culture bridges the gap between biological evolution and cultural evolution, which by laying the groundwork for Middle Paleolithic sophistication. फिर की साइट्स की बात करते हैं। इंडियन साइट्स आपने देख ली। टूल्स यहाँ पे मिले हैं फर्स्ट इन अतिरम्पकम, बाईफेशियल हैंड एक्सेस, क्लीवर्स, स्क्रैपर्स एंड फ्लेक टूल्स। देन होंगी बाइकल वैली, इसमें tools are made from local raw material, dolerite and limestone. तो यूपीएससी के पर्सपेक्टिव से आई एम ओनली हाईलाइटिंग द इम्पॉर्टेंट थिंग, बाकी इनके बारे में जस्ट अभी बताई है। And here the sites included both factory and habitation site, which are evidence of plant activity. So difference, factory site means a site, a piece of land from which stone tools or raw material for such as stone tools, they are collected. They are known as factory site, जहाँ पे stone tools बनाए जाते हैं, and we have evidence by large number of flakes. फिर हैबिटेशन साइट जो होती है वो वो पीस ऑफ लैंड होता है जहाँ पे दे स्टे, दे फीड देमसेल्फ, दे स्टे एट नाइट। वहाँ पे फिर जो एविडेंस है वो उनके जो लेफ्ट ओवर्स हैं, बोन्स हो गए, इन सब से उसके एविडेंस मिलते हैं। तो यहाँ पे जो होंगी माइकल वैली है, यहाँ पे ये जो पर्टिकुलर साइट है, ये दोनों फैक्ट्री एंड हैबिटेशन साइट। And the faunal remains and stone tools, they are found here, just butchery and meat processing. फिर पंचमढ़ी एंड नामदा वैली, तो यहाँ पे जो नोटेबल साइट है भीमबेटका, आदमगढ़, हथनोरा। The Bhimbetka rock shelters, they are UNESCO World Heritage Site, and Bhimbetka, it shows continuous occupation from low Paleolithic to historic time. So, तो lecture start हुआ, I told you about the difference between historic and prehistoric time. Prehistoric is the time before arrival of writing. The historic time, the later that followed. So this Bhimbetka site, it has been continuously occupied from Low Paleolithic around 2.6 million years ago up to historic time, up to around 1000 BC. And there are presence of choppers, hand axes, and cleavers in quartzite from Low Paleolithic level. Where Hatnora fossil, the Narmada man, discovering of a partial hominin skull cap, which is possibly Homo erectus or archaic Homo sapiens, and associated with Acheulean tools. फिर Belan Valley and Stone Valley in Uttar Pradesh and Madhya Pradesh. Again, यहाँ पे series of Acheulean and post-Acheulean sites. There have been strong evidence of climate and ecological changes. And again, regional cultural continuity, not much of a relevance, but still for from UPSC perspective, you can remember such sites क्योंकि ये जो है coincide होती रहेगी. Now, major lower Paleolithic global site. First, Olduvai Gorge, discovered by Louis and Mary Leakey, and this site is known as the cradle of mankind. It produced first Homo habilis fossils and older one tools that are dated to 2.6 million years ago. Tool industry, older one with flakes, choppers, and hammerstones. Other finds, butchery marks on animals, suggest meat processing and scavenging behavior. Cultural interpretation, early signs of activity area and possibly home bases, and suggestion of cooperative group behavior. Second site, Kubifora and Gona in Kenya and Ethiopia, respectively. So, Gona, it contains some of the earliest stone tools around 2.6 million years ago, and Kubifora is associated with Homo habilis and Homo erectus fossils. Where the Manisi in Georgia, one of the earliest low Paleolithic sites out of Africa, dated around 1.8 million years ago, possibly of Homo erectus, or sometimes classified as Homo georgicus, and it is associated with older one like tools, not Acheulean, which is a key difference in the sites of the Manisi. Where in Zhoukoudian in China, so this site is famous for Homo erectus fossil, the Peking man, and here Acheulean-like tools assembly along with the evidence of fire use. And hominin here, the Homo erectus here, adapted to colder climate, and they occupied this site for a long time. Where Toralbine Ambrona, so the low Paleolithic site with evidence of organized megafauna butchering, especially of elephants. And again, this butchering, this coordinating hunting, it was facilitated by Acheulean tools, and it suggests cooperative behavior and scavenging hunting strategies. Now, comparing Indian and global context, so earliest tools in Athiram around 1.5 million, in the global side, Gona and Olduvai around 2.6 to 2 million years ago. Tool types in Indian, primarily Acheulean, and in global side, from Oldowan to Acheulean transition. Species in Indian, it was Homo erectus likely because Acheulean tool was there, and in global side, Homo habilis, and how it transitioned to Homo erectus. Where fire use evidence, it is indirect or absent, but such fire use in global site is present at Zhoukoudian and the Gasser Banat Yakov in Israel. Where cultural continuity, it had a long-lasting Acheulean tradition, whereas global side they have been transitioned due to climatic shifts. Now, the faunal association in India, there were bison, elephant, and deer who were butchered and eaten, and same megafauna had their evidence in global sites such as elephants, hippo, and large herbivores. Now let's talk about tool use as an adaptive strategy. So the rise of tool use was not random innovation, but it was the human innovation to exploit new niches, process resources, and survive climate fluctuation. The first application is in dietary adaptation and meat consumption. So stone tools allowed humans to exploit carcasses left by predators, a scavenging strategy to get the required nutrition. And stone tools enabled butchery of meat and marrow extraction, which aided protein and fats. And this shift to meat-based diet, omnivorous diet, it contributed to brain expansion. Then it reduced gut size. When gut size reduced, the brain it got the required nutrition to expand. And this reduction in gut size also increased metabolic efficiency. And then the longer juvenile dependency, which is a key hallmark of all the primates, it also favored social learning and cooperation. Paid tools help in expansion into new ecological zone by surviving in varied environment, in open savanna, in forest, in river valleys. In India, maybe the Shulians they are spread along river system, Narmada, Krishna, Godavari, It reflects water dependency and strategic settlement, where social and cognitive implications of tool use. First one is learning and cultural transmission. So, unlike instinctual behavior, stone tool production required experiential learning and imitation. And such learning, such observation, or such working out, it might indicate presence of proto-cultural system, means a precursor to modern cultures. The division of labor and cooperation, which is implied, but which is not far to seek, because such elaboration, such sophistication, it required possible task specialization. Some individual collecting raw material, other making tools, other using them, other scavenging, other making hides. And again, this might indicate the presence of group cohesion or proto society of modern civilization. And such cooperation, again, in hunting, butchery, child rearing, it indicates proto-social organization by role differentiation, by task specialization. Then, as of planning and abstract thought, so the Australian hand axis reflects mental templates जो आपको पहले बताया that suggest the use of conceptual thinking, spatio-temporal thinking, like thinking beforehand what you are going to make. So this might have employed the use of short-term memories and executive planning. Now the role of tools in niche construction. Well, this one is important, niche construction, because it has a separate theory for it. So the modern anthropology, it recognizes niche construction, which means organisms, they modify the environment to suit survival. It is nothing. You just, in modern time, it means if you want to, uh, you can say, organize your garden, then you first need to clear the bushes, the unnecessary weeds, throwing away material that are not needed. So such modification, in simple term, it is known as niche construction. But evolutionary terms में niche construction means जो ancestors हैं जहाँ जिस भी habitat में पहुंचे, they right now they are not at the mercy of particular habitat. They are deliberately, they are actively modifying that environment for their own survival. So in other words, they they were like manipulators. They became the new master of nature. So lower Paleolithic hominins, they used tools to reshape ecological boundaries. And now the significance of lower Paleolithic. So this period, 2.6 to 300,000, most transformative phase in human evolutionary history, because it represent a broader biocultural transition and also mark the emergence of human as an intelligent, adaptable, and socially organized being. And some behavior are implied, such as the formation of proto-social behavior, which led the foundational framework for all subsequent phases that culminated in writing and creation of civilizations. Now, one by one, we look at the significance. First, biological and anatomical evolution. First, brain expansion. So it saw the gradual increase in brain size from 500 to 600 cc in Australopithecines to around 700 in Homo habilis and to around 900 to 1100 cc in Homo erectus. And this brain expansion was closely tied to dietary changes, more meats and fat, more scavenging, more marrow extraction. Then it was also tied to tool use, which required planning, memory, and motor coordination. And then because of these activities, the survival was ensured, which further got a boost, further got support from social learning and communication. Here, anthropologists like Rolf Holloway emphasized endocrinal studies to show increasing brain complexity during this period, which means the complexity inside the brain in particular area, they started increasing. Like there was an expansion in Broca's area, which is key area for language processing. Then जो prefrontal cortex है, जो medial cortex है, तो जो cortical areas हैं, cortex, वो भी उनके अंदर भी एक्सपेंशन देखने को मिला, क्योंकि जो यहाँ पे एक्सपेंशन हो रहा है ब्रेन के अंदर, तो ये एक्सपेंशन जो है ये भी तो कहीं ना कहीं मैनिफेस्ट होगा, कोई ना कोई एरिया जो है वो साइज में इंक्रीज हो रहा होगा। तो जो डिफरेंट एरियाज हैं, जो लेफ्ट एंड राइट हेमिस्फीयर, जो उनके डिफरेंट एरियाज जो हैं वो धीरे धीरे वो इवॉल्व होते जा रहे थे। दे दे वर इंक्रीजिंग इन कॉम्प्लेक्सिटी, और हर एक एरिया स्टूड फॉर समथिंग स्पेशल। जो नियो कॉर्टेक्स है, जो प्रीफ्रंटल कॉर्टेक्स है, जितने भी कॉर्टेक्स में यहाँ पे बात कर रहा हूँ, लाइक नियो कॉर्टेक्स हो गया जो कॉग्निटिव एडवांसमेंट के लिए है, कॉग्निटिव एबिलिटीज के लिए है। प्रीफ्रंटल कॉर्टेक्स हो गया, ठीक है। तो ये जितने भी कॉर्टेक्स हैं, दे कॉम्प्लेक्सिटी इंक्रीज, और विद इंक्रीजिंग इन कॉम्प्लेक्सिटी जो बिहेवियर जो है, बिहेवियर मैनिफेस्टेशंस है, वो भी इंक्रीज होते गए। और ये सब जो है ये आप एक सेपरेट वीडियो इसके लिए भी बनाऊंगा मैं। मतलब पोस्ट क्रेनियल अडेप्टेशन, पोस्ट क्रेनियल मीन्स द स्केलेटल अदर देन द स्कल। तो फर्स्ट बाइपेडलिज्म, बाइपेडलिज्म तो ऑस्ट्रेलोपिथेसिस में भी हो गया था, होमो हेबिलिस में भी था। तो बट यहाँ पे जो शिफ्ट है, ऑस्ट्रेलोपिथेसिस थे, दे वर लाइक दे एग्जिस्टिंग इन a transitional lifestyle, sometime terrestrial, sometime arboreal. But Homo habilis और उसके बाद Homo erectus दोनों जो है, they were completely terrestrial. And now they were not only terrestrial, they adapt themselves for this terrestrial lifestyle. उनके अंदर they could walk for a long time. This endurance locomotion was there. So this endurance locomotion, it allowed early hominins to cover the vast distance during foraging. ये एक वर्ड जो है, ये मैंने समझाया नहीं। होमिनिन, तो hominin are those species that resemble humans in features, resemble modern human in feature। यहाँ पे जो features, first bipedalism, ये तो एक की फीचर है बाइफिडलिज्म का। फिर तो बाइफिडलिज्म होगा तो प्लेसमेंट ऑफ फोरम एंड मैग्नम। फिर कुछ मॉर्फोलॉजिकल फीचर्स हैं, लाइक द लोअर लिम्ब अपर लिम्ब प्रोपोर्शंस, क्योंकि अगर अपर लिम्ब अगर लंबे हैं, इसका मतलब है कि टेरेस्ट आर्बोरियल लाइफस्टाइल है, क्लाइंबिंग फीचर्स हैं। तो यहाँ पे जो प्रोपोर्शन है, इट शुड हैव रिजेंबल दैट ऑफ मॉडर्न ह्यूमंस। तो मॉर्फोलॉजिकल एडेप्टेशंस भी हैं। फिर उसके अलावा नेक्स्ट जो है वो डेंटल है, डेंटिशन में। देन उसके बाद जो है जॉ के अंदर है। तो ये सारे जो फीचर्स हैं, all those species that show such a resemblance, they are placed in hominins। और वो भी याद नहीं रहे तो ये देख लीजिए आप, ऑस्ट्रेलोपिथेसिस, उसके बाद होमो हेबिलिस, उसके बाद होमो इरेक्टस, फिर उसके बाद जितने भी स्पीशीज जो होमोजीनस में आती है वो सारे के सारे होमिनिन्स हैं। So the this endurance locomotion, it has allowed early hominins to cover vast distances during foraging and engage in persistent hunting. And उसके अलावा this endurance locomotion also help the Homo erectus to spread in different continents, where there is a development of precision grip and manual dexterity, which was necessary for tool making, where cultural and technological foundations, first invention of stone tools वो देख चुके हैं, Olduvon and Acheulean industry, which are the earliest known cultural traditions, and the Acheulean hand axes, they reflect cognitive templates, standardization, and aesthetic appreciation, where cultural transmission, जो ये सारे देख चुके हैं, बट स्टिल एक एंथ्रोपोलॉजिकल सीक्वेंस में आपको समझा रहा हूँ, ताकि इट एक्ट एज अ मेंटल मैप। और कंपार्टमेंटलाइजेशन जो है, इट इज स्पेशली फॉर ऑप्शनल मीन्स, क्योंकि वहाँ पे जो आंसर्स लिखने होते हैं दे आर ऑल्सो कंपार्टमेंटलाइज। तो सिग्निफिकेंस ये भी, इट ऑल्सो समटाइम फॉर्म अ डिफरेंट पार्ट ऑफ द क्वेश्चन। तो Tool making, it required observation, imitation, and instruction, which suggests protocultural transmission, where Robin Dunbar, who connected the need for social cohesion with the growth of brain size and complex language evaluation. So this is a hypothesis, and just जिस तरह से जो मैरो एक्सट्रैक्शन है या जो मीट प्रोसेसिंग है या ओमनिवोरस डाइट है, इट ऑल्सो सजेस्ट ब्रेन एक्सपेंशन इन द सेम वे. बहुत सारे जो अगर ऑल ऑफ दीज थिंग्स दे आर लाइक थिंग्स ऑफ अ वर्चुअस लूप. वर्चुअस लूप वो होता है जिसमें वन थिंग कॉम्प्लीमेंट द अदर एंड द नेक्स्ट थिंग इट कॉम्प्लीमेंट द अदर वन, फॉर्मिंग अ वर्चुअस लूप. इट्स लाइक आप सुबह मॉर्निंग 5 बजे उठते हैं, उसकी वजह से आपका मूड ठीक रहता है. मूड ठीक रहता है तो आप 5 घंटे स्टडी करते हैं, तो आप एक एग्ज़ाम क्लियर कर लेते हैं, आप आईएएस बन जाते हैं. आईएएस बनने की वजह से आपकी सोशल प्रेस्टीज जो है वो बढ़ जाती है. तो इट्स लाइक ए वर्चुअस लूप. तो इन द सेम वे कि omnivorous diet थी, omnivorous diet it complemented the brain expansion because it provided the energy, and such energy it ensured the survival of species. Such survival of species, it suggested group cohesion, क्योंकि एक साथ बहुत सारे members जो हैं जो they survive. फिर सर्वाइवल इज अ पावरफुल इम्पल्स, और हर कोई सीखना चाहेगा. इट्स नॉट लाइक दैट इन द वर्ल्ड व्हेन वी आर फेसिंग अ क्लाइमेट डिल्यूज और हमारे पास एक ऐसा सोल्यूशन मिल जाए दैट वी कैन ultimately, if in the near future we are going to face such Armageddon, such apocalypse, climate apocalypse, ऐसे में कोई हमें बताएं कि हाउ टू सर्वाइव दैट apocalypse, तो हर कोई सीखेगा उसको. तो दिस माइट हैव सजेस्टेड ग्रुप लर्निंग की वजह से ग्रुप कोहेजन. तो एक अगेन एक वर्चुअस लूप. फिर वही ग्रुप कोहेजन की वजह से फिर रोल डिफरेंशिएशन, प्रोटोसोशल सिस्टम, फिर एक साथ रह रहे हैं तो लैंग्वेज इवोल्यूशन की वजह से जो ब्रोकाज एरिया है इट इवॉल्व. ब्रोकाज एरिया इवॉल्व है, तो उसकी वजह से जो ग्रुप कोहेजन है वो और बढ़ा. ग्रुप कोहेजन बढ़ा तो सर्वाइवल बढ़ा. सर्वाइवल बढ़ा तो फिर अगेन न्यूट्रिशन सोर्सेज जो हैं, जो रिकंस्ट्रक्शन है, जो एनवायरमेंटल एक्सप्लॉयटेशन है वो भी बढ़े, तो अगेन सर्वाइवल. तो ऑल ऑफ दीज थिंग्स दे आर नथिंग बट a stronger virtuous feedback loop, where the next significance is ecological and geographical expansion post disposal of early humans. So lower Paleolithic began expanding beyond Africa into Western and Central Asia, into Europe, into South America, और वो आप अभी देख चुके हैं. फिर environmental engineering and niche construction. So lower Paleolithic hominins began modifying their environment. They were no longer at the mercy of environment. They are actively becoming a semi-master, actively became the actual modifier of the environment by digging for roots, butchering animals, managing fire in the earliest form, and making the presence of human agency felt in shaping an ecosystem, even reshaping the habitat they were living in, which were later developed into niche construction theory. The proto-social organization, behavioral complexity. So even though it was rudimentary, there is some archaeological evidence. First, division of labor, then home-based behavior, which means the site for tool making was different than the site of food sharing and sleeping. And this is again evidence, and not just evidence. ये तो implied behavior. We know we do not sit at where we make the tools. Where early cooperation and perhaps caregiving. Where Kling Isaac's food sharing hypothesis and Pineford's scavenging model, both of them they point to increasing social interdependence in this period. So I what I want to say in encapsulated in a short form that Low Paleolithic it acted as a precursor to modern group behavior, a proto-social organization. where it finally it acted as a foundation for late evolutionary development. First, language emergence, because धीरे धीरे जो tools हैं, they got more advanced during middle and upper Paleolithic. So though this sophistication, it involved complex motor planning, and this also have required language processing, which is supported by Broca's area symmetry in fossil skull. In other words, there are two interpretations here. First, the tool making, it required complex motor planning and learning, and such changes and adaptation are also required for language processing. Again, they are stuck in a feedback loop, a positive feedback loop. Then again, if you look at it other way, such construction, such complex tool construction, the construction of advanced and sophisticated tools, it also required not only complex motor planning but also language processing. Because right now you are proceeding, right now your behavior, your foraging, your raw material, all of them, they are increasing. The demand is increasing, and with demand, now you need more than just communication, more than just gestures. So this might have acted as and the adaptive pressure for evolution of language. Then, as of symbolic thought, so even if it was not evidentially present, the regularity and standardization of Acheulean tools, it suggests early mental representation, because the creation of these tools, it required a mental template, mental framework. So mental framework, then the it might have sown the seeds of later symbolic thought. Finally, the conclusion: the lower Paleolithic, it bridges the gap between biology and culture, showing the birth of cultural animal, Homo sapiens in the making. So this age is spanned from 2.6 to 300,000. It witnessed the emergence of Homo habilis and Homo erectus, along with older one and Acheulean tools. And these tools reflect early cognitive abilities like planning, precision, and standardization. And also, this period also saw brain expansion and improved manual dexterity, enabling complex behavior such as protosocial behavior, knowledge transmission, and ecological flexibility. And the lower Paleolithic hominin began shaping the environment known as the niche construction. This is it. Now, my request, subscribe to the channel. अभी आप लोग प्रीलिम्स में लगे हुए हैं, तब तक मैं तो यूपीएससी का जो मेन कोर पार्ट है उसके वीडियोस मैं तैयार कर लेता हूँ. कुछ चीज़ें जो मिस हो रही है, बट यू कैन आस्क मी, यू कैन ड्रॉप द कमेंट. अगर कुछ ऐसी चीज़ है जो बहुत सारे लोग नहीं समझ पा रहे हैं, तो उसके लिए अलग वीडियो भी बन जाएगा. एंड कीप सपोर्टिंग मी, कीप सब्सक्राइबिंग. दैट्स इट. थैंक यू.